Hi, I'm Russ Movies, an independent filmmaker and actor in New York, and in between the chances I get to do my creative projects, I love to sit down and talk with other artists to see how it is they do what they do, how they take art and use their craft to reveal truth to an audience. So in this series of conversations, you'll meet some people you may recognize, some people you won't recognize, but they're all independent artists, and we'll get in depth in a long-form conversation to see how it is they do what they do. Welcome to Art, Craft, Truth. I'm on Art, Craft, Truth writer, director, filmmaker Elias Plagianos. Elias and I came up in the independent film world pretty much the same time, and over the last several years his films and television projects have won a tremendous amount of awards in festivals all over the country. He's got a lot of things on the burner, and it's fun to talk to an old friend about the craft of filmmaking and see what he's up to. Director, writer, filmmaker Elias Plagianos. This is awesome, dude. Thanks for doing this.
Dude, I'm so excited. I feel like we've known each other for so long and we've never had a chance to sit down and have a drink and just chat about the insanity of our world. So this is really exciting.
That's right. What's cool is we kind of came up in the indie film world at the same time, doing in the same places, doing the same things. So
yeah.
And we kind of crisscrossed and used a lot of the same people and did all kinds of things, but we never actually sat down and, like you said, just shot the shit about the business and the art and stuff. And what's cool is
right.
you approached me, and because you got a couple of cool things coming out right off the bat. So we'll start right off with that, and then we'll kind of go into your career and we'll go into like the art and craft of filmmaking and stuff. But I definitely want to get right to the fun stuff that's coming up, because we'll put this out right before it comes out so you can share it and stuff.
Awesome.
So so right off the bat, a couple of fun projects you're working on: Distemper and Hudson Falls.
Sure. So these last couple of years I've been focusing on independent TV, which is a little bit different than films. And the first project we did was sponsored by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. And their kind of mission is to create projects that shed light on science and scientists and like real great stories about it. And they've done some tremendous films, and Distemper is their first movement into independent television. It's this really fascinating story about this Dr. Louise Pierce, who went to the Congo to cure sleeping sickness, which was a pandemic, and it really could have ravaged the world the way that COVID-19 is now.
I've come to realize predators come in many different shapes and sizes. Some are men, consuming all that comes before them. Some are so small they live within a tiny tsetse fly to attack their victims.
All I'm asking is a little help from the wealthiest country in the world.
Mr. Johnson, I've been very patient with you.
Maybe after reading this, you'll have a change of heart.
And that is playing at the Queen's Drive-In, April 30th on Friday, in front of the film Gravity, starring George Clooney and Sandra Bullock, which is like super exciting for us. And the next project I got coming out that's going to premiere this summer is called Hudson Falls. And that's just like a private eye show starring Richard Kind, Jessica Hecht, William Sadler, Chike Okonkwo, Tara Westwood. Just like we were able to get this really amazing group of actors because it was shot the first week that production was allowed to occur again in New York. And none of them were working. So that's the only way I could ever possibly get all these amazing actors. And we did it in a really crazy way, something I've been trying to do since we first met, which is make a film with no crew, where it was just me, my buddy who's a DP, a sound guy, and a bunch of friends and amazing actors. Right. And I'd love to chat more about that process. Absolutely. But that one is coming out soon. And you could visit hudsonfalls.tv for a 6-minute preview. And Distemper again is playing at the Queen's Drive-In April 30th.
All right.
So
cool, man. That's
deep
awesome.
breath.
Got the plug out, because I wanted to get that stuff out right off the bat, because I'm going to put this out so that we can get that ahead of it. So again,
Thanks.
April 30th, which is the Queen's Festival, that's Distemper. And Distemper is a short piece, right? It's
a 22-minute TV pilot.
TV pilot, right?
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go on, but that looks great. I mean, some of those locations.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Cinematography is terrific on it, and the locations are great on that thing.
Yeah, we had an impossible task where they gave us $25,000 as a grant. The idea was whatever script they threw my way, I would have to produce. And I did not think in a bajillion years that I would have to do a 1918 period piece. So
in the Amazon, or where
in the Congo, which is just northern New York near New Jersey, just grasslands. So
it looks great. It looks awesome. And then Hudson Falls, it's a pilot kind of a pitch, or is it on Amazon, or is the idea to get more of those shows done, or what's the plan for Hudson Falls?
Yeah, so we're trying to approach this like there's no real gateway for independent TV to move forward. So we've been trying a bunch of different things. This latest attempt is to get some great actors, and we're going to do a few months of the circuit just to see how it plays, gain a fan base, and then it's going to go right onto Amazon. And then we're hoping that word of mouth, they'll want more of them. But now it's just one show.
Okay, so just sort of just a standalone pilot that'll eventually go to Amazon. Then hopefully it gets a little following, and somebody puts some money behind you, and you get a series.
Which is so easy, as we know, right?
Quick. No problem. Well, I'll tell you, that's as you said, great cast, great actors, Richard Kind and Bill Sadler and all those. I mean, I saw a little bit of that too, and just for the fact, and we'll talk about how you did it, but the limited amount of crew, it looks and sounds great. So, I mean, I think that
thanks, man.
If the subject matter is popular enough, it'll catch on. All right, so we got the stuff coming out immediately. So
right.
Anybody tuning in right at the top of the show can see that, and they can go to those things really the end of this month and then on into this summer. So let's get back to who you are, bro. I mean,
man.
So. Like I said, we started doing independent films probably around the same time, and we're in a lot of the same festivals with different projects we worked on over the years. So for you, what was it? I mean, did you start off wanting to be a filmmaker? Were you a writer? Were you an actor? Like as a kid, is this where you wanted to head eventually, or what?
Yeah, I mean, there was this thing I did high school plays, and in it said, you're watching me on stage now, but one day I really want to be behind the camera. So it's been something I've been wanting to do my whole life. I mean, I guess it started like we all start off, where some family member takes us to the movies a lot, right? And that kind of becomes our church, and we learn about who we are and who we want to be, and we learn about the problems of other people and how we could relate. And it was always just a really special thing to me. And I grew up in the suburbs in New York, and that world just seemed so far away. Like it was impossible to ever do it. But I got really lucky in high school. I started doing theater, and then also my high school had a TV studio, which was like
nice.
A big deal, right?
Really
like, VHS, reel to reel. And there we did like news broadcasts, and then I had my own public access show.
Cool.
So yeah, which I mean now is kind of like YouTube, but back then it was really stressful because you had to, you're like 14, 15, and you had to have a show 22 minutes every week, and you had to write and star in it, and so it was a good challenge.
What's fascinating is another filmmaker friend of mine who's was my DP on a couple of films has a very similar story. Sean King. I don't know if you know Sean.
I've heard the name. Yeah.
And he same exact thing. AV, thing in high school, and then lucky enough to do public access kind of stuff, and kind of took that road into filmmaking. And a lot of us in this area. That was kind of the road. What were the, you said movies were the church. What were the movies you were watching? What was the stuff you grew up with as a kid?
So, I mean, super mainstream things. I mean, like, Indiana Jones and Star Wars, but everybody makes fun of me because I went to Greece a lot as a kid. Every summer I'd spend like 3 months there. So I had this really odd European influence also. Like I liked Flash Gordon more than Star Wars, right? Like that, thing. But I mean, like, all the movies we all love. And it wasn't really until later on in life that, I guess about the time where we started making movies, the previous crew was like Kevin Smith and Robert Rodriguez and Steven Soderbergh and the emergence of Sundance. Right. So they're the ones who really made me feel, and I'm not sure you too, whereas like you could just get a group of friends, and if you're smart enough and have a good enough story and good enough actors, you can make something. And that's,
right. And were the things that you were watching as a kid, and then later on with those pioneering sort of Sundance independent filmmakers, was there a style that was influencing you? Were there things that you kind of hooked onto that seemed like resonated with you that you eventually kind of did, or anything like that?
Yeah. So, it's an interesting question because later on in life I realized it, but earlier on I was more influenced by graphic novels and comic books. So my framing was very specific, and the lighting was highly stylized. Right. But now I definitely use more the Soderbergh way of things, where natural lighting, and you just let your actors play, because to me now as an adult that feels more natural and real, and I think you could get much better performances. So I think it took me a long time to get to where my heroes were at a lot sooner. So.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I think the thing that I remember being introduced to you first was Crimson Mask, right? That was the first indie kind of thing with Bobby Clohessy, and that was like a highly stylized kind of graphic novel looking thing. Now that I think about it, right? And so was that your first like feature foray kind of deal, or what? And had you done stuff before then, or?
I did a couple of documentaries, a lot of short films that were terrible, and then I did one short film. Just to go back a bit, I was really one of the first people to avoid film and just go into the digital world. And I made this action movie that was just like a cheap knockoff of these like John Woo things back before YouTube, and we were the highest rated web video, but that's only because there were like 8 of us, right? Like it wasn't great. Crimson Mask was my first feature film, and I was like 28 maybe, and I saw myself never making a movie, because it was just like, if I don't do it now, I'm not gonna do it ever. So I did that stupid thing where, you get your credit cards and your friends and everything, and you just go all in. Yeah. And it really was, like 4 different movies that I always wanted to tell, and I knew I only had one chance. So it became, right. I mean, you will watch it now. It's a mess, but
it's all right. And it made that whole festival circuit. I forget which ones we were doing at the time. I don't know if it was Video Guys or
yes, I specifically that to me, you guys were like the cool big brothers, and I was like just kind of chasing after you guys because you were winning everything. As you were leaving the circuit, I was just getting in, right? And you guys just had such great stories and input, and we were just so honest with one another. It was the most wonderful, refreshing thing because we were, when we were doing it, the festival circuit, it mattered more, I guess, than it does now, because you can make a sale and stuff. Sure. And you guys got a distributor, I remember, like pretty early on.
Yeah, well, that was, I think the Video Guys was Dan Brennan, my old buddy Dan Brennan's piece, which was a romantic comedy and stuff. And yeah, he got a distributor out of one of those, I think the Hollywood one we went to. We went to one in LA. But yeah, I mean, that was the good thing about that is we were all modest. I mean, we all knew exactly where we were on the ladder. Yeah, yeah. So nobody was like, that's why it was so easy to just be like, look, dude, we just put this together. We did the best we could. And that was a great time. And it was such a fun, the good thing about the festival circuit is, when you're doing that stuff with your credit card and your buddies, and you're putting everything you have into it, and you're just enjoying it, you want it to be seen. And it's the one
100%.
It's the one place where you're going to get an audience, and so those were always exciting to just get in something, have an audience watch it, and whether it made it or didn't make it, you could at least enjoy the fact that it got seen. So I think we all shared that same sentiment of let's get it up there and get it.
Yeah, I mean, on a big screen, man, like you will never get your film on a big screen now. I mean, it's so hard, and I mean, growing up and like that's all I ever wanted. All I ever wanted was to do a feature film, have it in a theater, and have it in Blockbuster, because I worked there over summers, and the asshole manager was like, "You're never gonna be a filmmaker." And then, actually, this is a horrible story, but I'll share it. The jerk manager at Blockbuster, who told me I'd never be a filmmaker, when this got into Blockbuster, the first thing I did was, I'm going to go back there and I'm going to put this movie in, this guy's face. And I went there, man. And it was so funny because he didn't remember me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and, he was kind of sad and run down. And I was like, God, I should just be so happy and excited. And I'm doing this weird vengeful thing, for no reason. So
yeah, no, you don't even realize the things that are important until they're half past you most of the time. So that first one, Crimson Mask, I mean, you're a kid. How did you manage to get Bobby at the time? Because Bobby Classy was, he'd been a working actor for 25 years at that point, and that was a great get for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you know, he's really into sexual favors. So I had to do some really graphic, disgusting things.
Hey, whatever you got to do.
Whatever you got to do.
Bobby's a strange guy.
So I actually, again, I've been so lucky, so unbelievably lucky. He just had a little bit of a dry spell, sort of, where it was in between projects for a year or two. My buddy did a reading with him, and I just went there and I saw him, and I was just like, wow, this guy's the most amazing actor. I didn't know him from Oz, right. And then we did a little short film, a zombie comedy movie, and we had so much fun that I wrote this role for him. Okay. And I think he was just so excited by that, and how much I respected him, and I listened to him, and I learned from him, that he jumped on. So
that's great, and he became a real good friend of yours. I mean, you guys eventually,
closest buddy.
Yeah, when I had him on the podcast, he was like, "Yeah, I was going to do the SAG Awards, but I didn't have anybody to go with, so Elias and I went out to to do the SAG."
Yeah, I mean, he's become one of my closest friends. I just saw him last week. We had traveled so much for the Crimson Mask, at all these festivals in the middle of nowhere. Right. When you're young, you can. But we had a lot of miles. So when he got into the SAG Awards, I was like, bro, I got all these miles. We could do flights, hotels. He's like, really? I'm like, absolutely. And we had the best weekend, I think, ever.
That's awesome. That's what he said. He said it was just great. He was like, my traveling buddy, my buddy Elias, and I went, that was great. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's talk about the craft of filmmaking as it stands. Like you said, you got in after that arc bended, when it became digital, which I did too. We all did. I came from kind of a different road. I came from the theater, and I came sort of late. I was probably 32 or something when I started really concentrating on the film as opposed to the theater stuff. So it was already digital by then. When you're looking at it, and you're a writer as well, right? You've written pretty much all of these pieces. So,
yeah.
So writer director, what's the process for you when you're looking to start a project? Aside from these sort of gun for hire ones you just did, where they kind of gave you a premise that you had to kind of write to. When you're looking to do your own stuff, is it months of typing away at your script, and how do you set up starting a project as a writer director?
Yeah, I mean, it's the hardest thing ever, and I think at first, I'm not the greatest writer, and I don't enjoy writing scripts, but what I do enjoy is making things. And I think that it first actually comes from I get inspired by a location I have access to. I get inspired by an actor I meet and their voice. It's much more like practical, because I realize that if you write a script just from your imagination, the chances you get to make that are so small. So a good example of that is I had this friend who I met who wanted to open up a movie studio in Cuba. And he said, hey, we just want to produce anything. So if you have a story, fly down, we'll put you up. I'll pay for the movie. So I wrote a whole, thing set in Cuba. So that's how I get inspired by is with my limitations. Like, what do I have and how can I make this into an enjoyable story? Which is a weird way to come about it.
It's actually, I love that. I mean, it's so practical, because ultimately, we can have a drawer full of scripts. But you want to make the fucking thing at some point. So
exactly.
So if you're writing from a place of, all right, what location can I get? What would be the premise of this box that I'm in? I think that's awesome, because you're going to have a stack of work where the other guy's going to have the 2 that he did in 12 years. Right. Awesome. So with that in mind, what are some of the what are some of the examples of the Cuba one was one. Crimson Mask, you wrote kind of for Bobby Class, that character at least for him, right? But there was a couple of different stories. What are some of the other spots where you've kind of done that, where you've said, all right, this is the spot I'm in, let me try and write around this?
Right. So I did a TV pilot short film with William Sadler, and I had a buddy who had an art gallery. So and it's this beautiful place on 23rd Street and 10th. And then all of a sudden I just started writing, and I was like, well, what characters would exist here? Who do I want to work with? And then it became this thing about it was a comedy about this photographer who, gets wrapped up in the art world. That also had Linda Hamilton in it, who I've wanted to work with forever. And I wrote that script in that way. And a buddy of mine was like, oh, I just worked with Linda. She wants to do a comedy. And he's like, I gave her your script. I was like, there's no way we're going to get Linda Hamilton and, our thing. And she just really dug the character, and it was funny. She always wanted to do comedy. Oh, and that's another thing. If you ever want to work with an actor, see what they've done and then write something completely different, for them, and they'll jump at it. Also for a long time, I owned a bunch of warehouses in Brooklyn. So we used this block in Red Hook as our kind of like Hollywood backlot, where we'd have holding here and we'd make the sets here, and we'd use my buddy's home there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's the only way I know how to make movies, because I tried the other way. After Crimson Mask, I spent 5 years in the Hollywood system, and I was attached to some really big projects. Like there was one with Harvey Keitel, Michael Madsen. It was like the 15th anniversary of Reservoir Dogs. It was a thing called City of Lies. And then it was all based upon foreign sales. Right. And, Madsen, I love him. He's a great, kooky, weird guy, but he did a couple of stinkers. And, his foreign sales value just went down, and the whole project goes away. And then you try and find another producer. And then it's 5 years of your life where no one knows how much work was put into it. And so you don't wind up making anything.
So let's talk about that particular section there. What was that whole trajectory about that Hollywood system thing? What were you doing? Were you writing spec kind of things for, like, how explain to the crowd out there how that works, to the layman, what that's about?
Yeah, sure. So after Crimson Mask, like once you have a movie that appears to be successful, like everyone kind of wants to, see if you could do more. And on the festival circuit, I met a lot of producers and writers, and I got this script. I forgot what the original name was, but it was a crime movie set in Hartford, and we changed it to a crime movie set in Brooklyn. And then a bunch of producers, you kind of send it out, and a bunch of producers read it, and then they start to figure out which actors should fit what role to get a certain budget.
Gotcha.
And there's a foreign sales value. So I remember back then a name that was very popular was Woody Harrelson. It's like if you could get Woody, you could get $3 million from blah 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 blah.
Gotcha.
So a lot of that world is just finding the right actors, and actually now still it's just finding an actor that could do the foreign sale so that you could produce your film and make the sale. And then I also attached myself to Chuck Norris remakes because in Crimson Mask we had all these kind of crazy sword fights and stuff. Yeah. And we made it for so cheap. So I met up with this producer, Jason Riley from Canada. His company now changed names, but and we've been developing these Chuck Norris movies, man, for 10 years. Wow. And every 2 years, there's another hot actor that should be like, it was like Gina Carano for a hot second. It was all these people. And again, like it's all based upon who the new Chuck Norris is. And all these projects, you do get money, which is nice, but your projects never get made. And that's not why I think we got involved in this. It's to make things.
Absolutely. So you're basically, you're working, but your work is writing and sort of selling. Right. That's basically that's all you're doing. You're just trying to get the right thing attached. And did you have, coming off of Crimson Mask, are you doing this sort of all alone, or do you have some kind of representation? How are all these contacts, and how do you get into that system where you're at least getting money for something you're not making?
Yeah. So after Crimson Mask, my buddy Craig Blair, who you might have met, we decided to split up. He went to Los Angeles and I stayed here, and he was the kind of representation out there, and he did all the schmoozing, and like I can never do that. I mean, it just drives me absolutely crazy. Yeah, I mean, like, the endless amounts of sitting down in meetings, and what you'll find is that people love to talk about movies and they don't like to actually make them. And
without question, that's what it's all about right there.
And there's so many scam artists. Have you read this article about this cat who did this pyramid scheme, this like actor?
I just heard about, somebody was just telling me about that. No, I didn't dive into it, but yeah, I just heard about it.
Yeah, so I would say that 90% of our meetings were with guys like that, right. Where like you knew it was criminal, like 100%, like how they were getting money. Right. It was either a pyramid scheme, or there was this guy, if you look him up, his name is Carl Pratt. He stole money from his wife, and I mean to do these movies, and then he was going to produce. So we got involved with every loser in Hollywood for sure, because I mean we were kind of losers too. So
yeah, absolutely.
And they will take advantage of whatever aspect they can. And they just knew that we had access to a couple of name actors because of our work. So,
right.
That was their
crazy thing. So at what point do you finally get back to making something when you're in this, when you're like, you know what, God damn it, I just want to make something. What's the thing that gets you out and gets you back on the set?
Great question, man. Yeah. So it was the birth of my second kid. I was like, I want to make make things, and I want to be someone who he looks up to in like a specific way. And I remember this was shooting me nicely. I would have to rock him to sleep every night because like he wouldn't sleep. And I didn't want to be on my phone, so I was left with my thoughts. It's like you get thoughts about movies in the shower, right? But it was just like that, and I just had this whole show just like play out. Wow. So, and then when it got made and it did really well, I got re-energized, and I was like, from now on, I'm going to make one thing every year. I don't care if it's a short film, if it's a TV pilot.
Right.
The one skill I have is I can make things look good for no money. Right. So, that's
that one was Shoot Me Nicely. That was the Linda Hamilton.
William Sadler. Comedy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. So when you're approaching a piece, we already talked about how the sort of practical mind that you have in writing the piece. But when you're approaching directing and setting up the project as a director, as a filmmaker, are you one of these like super prepped, shot list dudes and all that, or is it more like is it more practical like the writing part of it, where you're just sort of allowing whatever the thing is to inform how you're going to shoot that day or how you're going to shoot that week? I mean, which way is it for you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, at first I was so locked into what I wanted the actors to do and say and stand, blah blah blah. And now it's completely freeform. So much so, I mean, there's no shot list. The only thing we really do is we look at a ton of locations, because the locations will inform a lot of the mood of the scene, of how much lights you need, where the actors can move within the lighting. So we do a ton of that, and then once we're on set, like I will throw the script out. I mean, you want to light the space, and then you want to allow the actors to just create the most realistic version of that scene. So I learned early from Chloe Hesse, where it's like, don't really direct on set. All the directing should be done in conversations before you're there. Yep. And then it's about all of you. It's kind of like a dance where it's like, well, if we want the camera to exist here somewhere, if you could kind of land in this area, and then if we move this mirror, and if we open the shade, and so it's really, it's like organic. And Jessica Hecht, who I worked with on this last one, who's in like a million projects.
Terrific actress.
She said she came in the morning and was so pissed because she was like, I can't believe I agreed to do the stupid thing, right? Like she was like, I drove in from Manhattan. I'm in the middle of nowhere in New York, like an hour away. And then she got on set and she was so invigorated by the way we were doing things and how much fun it was and how much space we let her work in. She was like, man, I wish all things were like this. And I think a lot of TV actors appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Because TV is the worst. I mean, you can't do anything on set.
Right. Yeah, especially those procedurals. It's a template, and it's like, this is kind of how we do it here. Don't fuck it up. Just do this, So do you think that that's informed by the fact that by the budgetary, place we're in, the strata we're standing in, that you operate that way? Or do you think you'd behave that way if you had, your Titanic budget, your whatever, but it's more joyful for you to work that way, or is it a function of limitation that you just kind of have to just do that?
Yeah, I think it's the type of movie, right? So if it's a character driven thing, I think if I had unlimited money, I would do it the exact same way. Right. There's no reason not to. I think the more chains you put on yourself by storyboarding and having a huge crew where they're department heads that have to every change you got to sign off on, and it becomes more of a headache. But if I were to do like a bigger budget piece where it's not character driven, I think that's when you really do have to plan shots, in a certain way. So
right. So you didn't do any theater, right? You didn't come from the theater, live theater.
I mean, high school theater, not yeah.
That's a real actor. That's the actor's medium. That's the actor's place, And the way you're setting up your set is like that. I never thought about that. You're totally right. Yeah. It's almost live theater with a sort of and that's I appreciate those sort of generally lit where everything's kind of lit we're gonna act within this environment, and we're gonna light the space rather than light the shot. It's
Right.
much more actor friendly and helps serve the truthfulness of the piece. You know, you can kind of move around, especially with the digital stuff now. This is a fun one. What did you start shooting on, and what are the kind of things you're working with now as far as technical gear?
Oh man, God, remember I've been wanting to talk to you about this because, I mean, when we first did Crimson Mask, we had to literally strap on cinema lenses onto those big old beta cams. I don't know if you remember. Oh no, it's DVHC or whatever it was. And so you got small sensors. You had no light. I think we had a shoot. It was ISO 200. So it was like you just had to like flood the rooms with light. And we missed out, man, because like 2 years later, after we did our struggles in our first things, the Canon 5D whatever Mark II came out, and then the GH4 and the GH5 came out, and I mean on this last one we shot with the Canon C200 in RAW, and we used autofocus, so we didn't even have a focus puller. Like, I mean, it was magic. It was great.
It's incredible. You know what? Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is for the folks layman out there. It was the early digital stuff. It was all on tape, and it was all standard definition kind of stuff. And you used to have to get these adapters that would go on the fixed lens on the camera that you then put on top of that. You'd put some old still photography lens to get the depth of field you were looking for. And I remember the big one for me was 2003 when the Panasonic DVX 100 came out, and it was the first
magic.
It was the first camera that shot 24 frames a second in video, and we were like, wow, it looks like a movie. You know, it was amazing how far we've come.
Yeah, now we're like analyzing how many stops of dynamic range, right? And if there's 13 instead of 14, it's like, oh no, I'm not going to use that.
That's right. Yeah, it's like my highlights are blowing out at 14 stops. I got to get rid of this A7S or whatever the hell I'm shooting on. But that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and what it says now, I think, is that you don't have any real excuse. Like
exactly.
The technology. I mean, you can make things look terrific if you know how to light things correctly, and it then becomes about the artistry and the story and the filmmaker.
Right.
What would you say when you're writing a piece? When you're like we talked about, you start from a sort of outside-in premise where it's like, this is what I can do within this limitation. Let me have story kind of come out of that. When that happens, is story important? Is what it's about what you're trying to say, or are you kind of a plot guy where it's like, oh, this is a cool twist? Like, what part of the writing process does story land for you?
Yeah, so I need a theme. I need like something I want to say, or I want to, critique society, or a personal thing I'm going through, or else there's no kind of magic there. As far as when I'm writing, I try and write in a very simple way, which is each part can't be and then. It has to be but therefore. So and I find myself, if I just do that and I put someone in a place and it's like, well, they're doing this, but then this happens, therefore they need to go here. The story writes itself if you have interesting characters in an interesting world. And if I surprise myself, I know I'm going to surprise the audience. And that's what's exciting, is that not looking forward to an end you have pre-planned. You come up with these dynamic stories, because if you keep surprising yourself with the but therefore, no one's gonna know, because you as a writer don't know. So
all right, so you're when you're writing, you're literally kind of going in continuity. You're following along, and those characters are kind of talking to you along the way, and you're like, oh, that's where we're going. Okay,
yeah,
interesting.
Right.
Have you?
And then I mean, obviously, then you need to go back, and like once you find out what the ending is,
Right.
you then have to put all these breadcrumbs that you probably left out because you had no idea where you'd wind up.
Right.
So,
You know what's interesting is my experience, and I've written a few things, and and directed a bunch of stuff, and that I've written, and I'm kind of the other way. Like I usually have an ending, and then I have no idea how I got there. So I'm like, well, I know I got to get there. So let's go. So the revelations are similar because I don't know how I got there, but I know that's
right.
I know we're going here, and it's
so you have a start point and an end point.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
okay, yeah.
For me, now that I'm thinking about the things I've worked on and written, it's usually it's going to end here. This is where this is where it's going to finish, and this is what I'm trying to say. This is what this story is going to say from here. But then it's like, well, all right, and I got to work my way to get there. I got to go back to the beginning and see how this all lines up to get there. So
so it's like a similar thing, though.
It is.
Right?
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It's like a reverse surprise party. It's like it's like you're at the place and everybody starts showing up, and you're like, "What are you doing here?" Oh, it's a surprise party for you. It's slowly people come to your party, and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, okay, it's a party for me. I get it."
Yeah. It's like, funny that you say that, because a lot of my projects have the narrative, like you find out the last scene first and then you go, in reverse. And I think a lot of that is because when I was a kid, my grandfather used to take us to the movie theaters, not knowing when the movies were going to start. He was like, all right, so I got you from 3 to 4. All right. So we just show up there. And then if we liked it, we would stay and watch it again from the beginning. And it makes you see narrative, and I was like, oh wow, that's how they got there. That's this is who this is.
So you were doing Pulp Fiction before Pulp Fiction.
When I was 6 years old, right? Yeah.
That's incredible. All right, so what? Let's talk about some specific interesting challenges and stuff. Like let's talk about this Temper, which is the one that's set. It's a period piece set in the Congo, And by the way, Elias, no money. So ready, go. How do you as a filmmaker approach these problems? I mean, that's a interesting, like, what's your first step? I would imagine for me, it'd be like, well, location. I got to find something that looks where I got to go, and then I'll figure this out.
Right.
Take us through that.
Right. So that's it. I mean, I think that being in New York, we have the unique advantage of we do have a variety of things here, right? Like we do have a varied landscape. We have different looking buildings. We have actual properties that were here from the 1700s, 1800s. So as soon as I was able, and man, I saw so many locations, and when you tell people you don't have any money, it's like, click.
Right.
But luckily, LIU Post was super nice, and they have this home that's, been there for years and years. And because this was a grant-based project that was for science, they were able to work with us. But, per your question, I think I try and find the locations, and then I get my team, and I need to see who connects with the story, and I need to excite them enough where they're gonna go that extra mile. And I think the main driver being a director is not like, telling people where to go and stand. It's really like, if you can inspire people to do their best work, and then they in turn inspire you, and then there's a possibility of doing something special. So if the story connects, so I actually went back and I rewrote a script I got for it to inspire, enough good people, be it actors, wardrobe, production design. And they really went all out, man. I mean, they really made this world feel real. So
let's talk about this, because I think this is I know you just peripherally, but I think this is a skill that you possess, because the people who I've come in contact, who've come in contact with you as a filmmaker and as a producer of work, kind of this is the vibe I get from you, which is
Okay.
you can do that. You produce this sort of excitement around a project. Talk about what your approach is with that. Let's say you got a draft of a script, you got a pretty good idea of you got a location, and you're zeroing in on starting to put that team together. How are you approaching an actor with that? What is the pitch? What is you say, oh man, Bill Sadler would be great for this, or what's his name, Kind would be fantastic. What
Right.
is the approach? How do you get that Elias kind of
exuberance about it?
like, what's that about, man? Because I don't have that. So tell me how you do that. What's your approach to pitching?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is you got to be honest, and just me in life, I try and be as honest as I can, because people smell, especially in this world, people know those guys are full of shit and people who are not, and I try and do this for the right reasons. I honestly try and treat people with respect. I honestly listen to everybody on set.
Right.
And although I might not do what you suggest, I let everybody know that I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to consider it. And the other part about being a good director, I think, is being like a filter for great ideas. So you all throw things at me, and I'm going to sift through those, and we'll choose A, B, and C. Like, a lot of that is just like a personal preference. But I really want to be better at my craft. And I think people like that when they're on my sets, they have the freedom to try new things. They have the freedom to do things they haven't ever done. So that's, I don't know, that's mix, I think, is how it works. But Rich is someone who I was at a Broadway after show with, and we were talking about how we both love Chinatown. And it was a long story. And then I was like, man, he would be a pretty good private eye. And so I wrote this thing for him. So
Richard Kind.
Yes, yeah.
Which, by the way, is something he would never get again. It's like
never get, and he says it himself. He's like, I would never be a private eye. Like, I don't look like a private eye. I don't sound like it. But to me, he definitely does. He's that kind of, 70s TV show, Private Eye, that I love.
Like Mannix or Columbo.
Yeah, or like Columbo, right. Or what's his name? Elliot Gould in The Long Goodbye, that thing.
Right.
So, and he appreciated, I knew what kind of private eye he should be.
Right.
And so, yeah.
All right.
Plus it's like, I watch a lot of junk, and, I have a lot of...
that help,
a lot of ideas.
Being a filmmaker, that's a huge bonus. If you if you have a library of just non sequitur stuff in your head, it helps. So it's that personal sort of connection with these performers and these team players that sells them on the idea. Say, hey man, I know what you want to do. I can give something to you. You're not doing something for me. That's kind of the trick.
Right. And I'm also super appreciative. And I think if you're not, and you don't thank every single person, because these things tend to focus on the director and the writer and not the team of these things. And I try my hardest to say, hey, no, it's not just me. There's a whole group of people here that made this magic happen. And part of the magic is getting the team together. So, that's,
so let's talk about a practical sort of, frame of a day on a set, a shooting day. What's that entail? You already talked about a lot of how let's take one of these modest budget things where it's a small crew. It's a simple lighting package. It's a simple camera package and a handful of actors, a couple of really good ones or whatever. And boom, you're ready to go. What's your day
right.
like? How do you kind of decide to set up your day? What things does it depend on? Like, how do you work as an actual filmmaker on the day?
Right. Well, so that's an awesome question, because I feel like I also kind of work as like a first AD in a way where, I mean, I really, although I like have one who's, you know, great, I also know exactly how long things will take. I know if we have multiple locations, we need to plan for the time. So, you know, on the day of the shoot, it's stressful because we don't know exactly how long things are going to like, you know, take. So I show up first, it's me, the producer, and my DP, and we just walk around the space. And we think, what is the best place to put the camera, what, you know, what lighting is best, and I come up with what I think is the best staging. Then we bring in the actors, and I say, hey, so like this is kind of what I'm thinking, but I want you guys to do what feels most natural, and then let's see if we could blend that. So then they walk through it, and a lot of times, because you don't have a chance for rehearsal, there's a lot of rehearsal there too.
Right.
And they start changing the dialogue, and you start thinking, does it need to be in there or not? So before cameras roll, there's a lot of work that goes into it, because you really only have 1, 2, or 3 three takes most.
Okay. All right. So so there's this sort of experimentation of the organic moment there with the actors. But even before that, when you're, like you said, when you're doing that walkthrough, you're deciding based on light and how you want to stage it, what informs that? Is it sort of what's happening in the scene, the story? Is it an intimate thing? Is it a confrontational thing? Like do those things inform how you're going to use the space?
Yeah, always. So the 3 rules are: is it a unique shot? Because you want to try and get one thing that people maybe have not seen. Like in Hudson Falls, we have this, like, you know, great shot, like through a warehouse door, but there's a truck and there's a mirror. But we also say, how can we tell the story in the frame? Because the more you could linger on a frame, and if the frame tells a story, you know, the better that is. But again, if the actors decide to move out or it's not working, you have to throw all that away and always go, whether it's staging, whether it's dialogue, whether it's editing, always go for the performance. I've seen it happen a million times where in the editing, amazing performances fail because the editor does it the right way and doesn't watch it and find the emotional truth of what the actor is trying to do and the connection with the other performers and edit that way. Wow, and I think that's a strength I kind of have too. So.
Well, that's it's not only a strength, but it's unique especially in filmmaking, because that's a real actor-centric view of how to do things. When you're setting up a day and you got a crew and lights and a location, and you go, you know what, based on what they're doing, we're tossing that shit. We're gonna we're gonna go with this. That's highly unusual for the filmmaking world, which as an actor is a fucking thrill, because you have again, you should have done a lot more theater, because that's the place where all this stuff really normally happens. So as a film,
can I ask with you though? I've seen you in so many great projects, and I feel, what attracts you to a project? Is it the character? Is it story? Is it potential for success? Like when you read it, like what's your initial thing?
This is such a funny question, because my question, I think Christopher Walken said this best, which is whatever's next is what attracts me to, do you want me in it? I'll do it. Fine.
Sure, yeah.
And at this point, it's been so long since anybody's asked me to fucking do anything. So it's like, whatever's next, fine. I'm a psycho. I'm Jesus. It doesn't matter. Whichever you want me to play.
I'm in. Yeah.
But the truth is, if I had that sort of luxury where I could read things and decide and pick my projects and have that kind of career, and when I'm directing something as well, it's always story. It's always what is it about? What are you trying to say? What's the the theme or the through line, but I call it the story. What is it? What's underneath the text?
Right.
Plot and all that stuff has never really been the turn on for me. If it's cool, twisty plots and crazy characters, that's great. But what are you saying? What are we trying to say here? And then as far as individual characters, I mean, I've played a lot of villains and psychopaths and crazy people. And in the theater, I got to do a lot of great classic parts and plays and things. But I think there's always, what attracts me is I tend to find characters that had a chance to be good, had a chance at some greatness in them, and some flaw, some thing broke that path. And there's a shot of redemption by the end of that story for them. There's a shot of maybe coming back to that moment where they could have been. And maybe that's based on just personal life vibe. But I mean, those are always the characters that turn me. They were on a trajectory that they could have gone up. Instead, they went sideways, things got shitty, and now we find them at a place in this story where they might have a chance to just touch that at the end. I like characters like that. Some redemptive,
I love that.
Hopeful thing. Those always
and I've seen that in your work. You really shine in those moments. I saw a short film you did with Deborah Markowitz about the two brothers.
Right. Yeah. By
and and there was this line, and I'm sorry I don't remember it, but I remember it was such an honest, real moment. It was like you're saying it's either something or nothing, or I don't remember what it was, but that
I think it was. I know the one you're talking about because that was the one line in that script that I really hooked into, which was like. The brother asked me, there was a whole backstory of all kinds of awful shit. And the brother asked the other brother, the one brother asked me what happened. And I think it was like nothing and everything.
Right. Yes. That was it.
And it was like, like my whole life happened and you missed that kind of an idea, which is exactly what I'm talking about. It's that moment where it's like, things could have been different,
Right. But isn't that the magic of the actor? Because, I mean, just think about those two words, meaningless, right? You read it on the script, all right, but you get an actor to bring life and emotion and what that means.
Right.
And it's magic. And that for me, when I could be involved in that, in capturing that moment in any way, I mean, that is why I wake up every morning. So
that's what we do. I mean, we're here to tell the truth, and it's for people who don't. I think people get lost sometimes. They forget, exactly what it is that the folks in our business do. It's sort of like I saw. Obviously, during the pandemic, there was everybody's got their memes. Memes fly around the internet, and I'd see these split screen memes where it was like a picture of nurses and firemen and whatever, and it's like these are the people that count, and then on the other split screen it was like all the television and actors and these people don't, kind of a thing. Like these are the
yeah.
We understand what the real heroes in the world are. There's no question about that. But at the same time, when you're in your house and you're trapped in your house, what are you looking at? Where are you finding solace? Where are you finding your entertainment? Where are you finding a mirror held up to your world? That's what we do. We provide this sort of safe space to experience things that, if you had to experience them in the world, would be deadly for you. We give you this place where you can live a truthful existence in a safe environment and kind of reflect on the humanity of it. See yourself in the picture, and that's a sacred job. That's an important job. So when actors do that, truthfully, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, and I mean, I have so many friends who are in this world, and it's really hard. It's such a hard life, isn't it? Because you could be an amazing actor and, not be in the right room at the right time. And I've seen so many, amazing actors who I'm like, why are they not on, TV every day?
Right.
And, they've been like the guy or the girl who just didn't get that huge role.
Yeah.
And it's a hard life, and I've seen a lot of actors like struggle emotionally. I mean, just being an independent creator in film, or it's a roller coaster, man. I mean, you're at some film festival, and you're like the hot shit, and then Monday it's like happy Monday, no one gives a fuck.
Right,
Like
exactly. Well, you understand this as well as I do. I mean, I've spent 30 years of my life to finally come around to let go of a lot of the stuff that I finally could let go of, because I had that clock in my head, by this age, Pacino had this by this one, and I'm going to be, and knowing what you could do is a curse, because you're like, I know I can hit 300 in this league. There's no question I can hit 350 in this league. I've acted with that guy. I know I can hit 400, and I'm just not getting it. And it took a long time to let go of that sort of bitterness and just sort of enjoy what it is I do when I do it, and all that stuff. But it can fuck with you, it can.
Yeah. Yeah, plus, like, I'm not sure your experience, but I know my experience is I'm a really independent outside the world. Like, I have my family, like, I don't like to exist in that world a lot. Right. And I feel like they don't like it. Like, people in Hollywood and the industry don't dig that you're not fully in. I mean, have you,
Yes, absolutely
seen that or experienced that?
I think so. And I think what happens too is when you give off that sort of like, I don't give a shit vibe, I'm doing my own thing, and then you're good and you do well, you think, well, then they're going to want to have you on board. And it's the exact opposite. It's like, we don't want this guy on set. We don't want, why would I want, he's good. What do we want him for? He's going to fuck everything up. We want to be sort of the kind of kings of this little pond, and everybody's got their little pond. So if you're sort of good and independent, that's going to be your lot. You're going to be good and independent, and they're not going to want, everybody's got their own little fiefdom, their own little kingdom.
Yeah.
And they're not going to want
it's a system, and I'm really finding it more and more in TV, where, man, that development system, like the fact that there's a whole slew of us making these independent TV shows that, a lot of them are pretty watchable. Like, we did a pretty good job, and, they should be series. But because there's so many people in the development system, they just do not want to allow you to just come in with a show. Because it would kind of take away what they're bringing to the table. Right. And like, I'm not knocking it, because they produce amazing shows. I mean, I watch, that system works. Yeah. That doesn't mean it should shut everybody else out, and voices that would normally not be in the system. And so,
well, do you think now, because of, I mean, this is really the golden age of television, as it were. It's not real classic television, it's streaming and everything, but the number of outlets, from Amazon to Netflix to Hulu to every original branch of every other, I mean, there's so many places to produce that need content. Is this a great time to be in it?
It is and it's not. It's not, because unlike independent film, like in the 90s, where it was there was a way to get it out there, right? Like there was a way to get it on screens, and then Miramax came along and all that. There's not the Miramax of TV yet, where like, and even so much as like a TV festival, there's really only 2 or 3. There's a Series Fest in Denver. There's the North Fork TV that I'm work on in Long Island. There's Catalyst, and then a lot of festivals have their own little TV section. But there's not a champion of this medium, where it's like you shoot a pilot, they like it, they like the actors in it, they like what you did, and they'll give you money to shoot 6 more. There's either you need to shoot all 6 episodes of the series, and then you could go to MIPCOM, which is in Cannes, or these kind of TV markets, and sell it. There's one in Miami too. Or you just come up with an idea and a pitch, and you give it to the development team, and they like the idea and they like you, and then they develop it. So what I'm trying to do with a bunch of different people is say, can we create an independent TV like a pipeline into the Hollywood land. But so far it's been very difficult.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a tough road to kind of push against. Did you think about doing, where you produce the whole show, a season? And say,
Yeah. I mean, we have gotten offers to do Hudson Falls, but I mean, like, they want to do it the same way we did the first one, and it's hard to get people. It's easy to get good people to work for 3 or 4 days or 5 days, as the friend rate. But you ask someone to take, 2 months or a month out of their normal schedule, they got families, they have a lifestyle they're accustomed to.
right.
You need more money to take up someone's time for that long.
Right.
So
now, as this is a question I ask all independent filmmakers, because it's always, and I had a great podcast a few weeks back with a couple other filmmakers about film financing. In specifically how they do it, how they nuts to bolts. What's your thing? Is it like all the rest of us, where you're just sort of creating a list of possible angels who wants to get involved, and I mean, how do you go about finding the funds to do this kind of stuff?
So, I mean, I've been super lucky recently because I've gotten a lot of grant work from my previous work. So that helps a lot.
Let me stop you right there before
sure.
we even go on. This is an arduous process. Am I wrong? Like, it's a lot of paperwork. It's weeks of.
Well, so I didn't. Yeah. So for the person who got the grant, yes, it is a very arduous process.
Right.
So they came to me and they were like, so we got this amount of money,
okay,
and no one wants to do it for this amount of money, but we know that you will. So it's that sort of thing.
That's fine. I'll take that deal over having to do all that shit for the fucking grant. That's those
right.
All right. So,
oh my God. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's
So
crazy.
Yeah. Although if anyone wants, I think the lady who did the grant work is at like New York State Grants. Her name is Anne. We could link to the thing. I mean,
Sure.
she's really great. She can help you out. And there are a lot of grants, but you need to be very specific. And I don't know. It also seems like if you have the right connections, also. But I don't know that world, too well.
So what is your world then? What is it? If you took that away, how do you do it?
It's not really about finding angels where it's like I have friends who they go to Miami, they find some old rich guy who wants to make a dumb movie, and they're like, oh yeah, sure. For me, it's about finding honest partners, like people who believe in what I do, the way I do it, and want to be involved. In more than just like here's a check.
Right.
And I'm always upfront, and I'm like, hey, listen, like, the chances of you making money on a TV pilot are very slim. But I'll tell you what I will do. I will give you a product that looks like a normal TV show for a micro fraction of that. And the experience of being on set and the connections you make, and you will come out of this a much more fun, interesting, cool person. Because I know I do. Like, after every show, I'm like, I'm much better than I was, like, as a person, as a director. So for me, it's really like a human experience.
I think
this
that's
world.
what we sell most of the time for people to get involved. It's like, for people with quote disposable income, it's like either you're going to buy, that midlife car, or you're going to buy your second boat that year, or you always wanted to go to Cannes, or you always wanted to go to Sundance, or you always wanted to be a movie producer. You're most likely not going to make that back. You might make back something on a tax credit or something, but
sure,
you're in it for the trip, man. It's a trip.
Yeah.
You're gonna be a movie producer, and you're gonna get to talk to all these people and these actors and whatever, and that's kind of the sell.
Right. That's it. But I will say I have had partners on board. I know you've been involved with a lot of these guys who, I don't know if we can name names, but there's like a lot of people that, I mean, you don't want to work with. Like, they will say, I will give you money, and you're like, I will never take your money, like, ever. And I have some people who even weaseled their way onto my film's, titles because they helped, and but who's a really bad one that we've both had the experience with, and I'm just going to say it, this guy who runs or used to run the
man, strange dude.
he's a guy who he's everything I hate about this world. Like, he likes to take advantage of people. He thinks he is, a little more than he is. Like I remember going when we went. He had 3 films that he produced and directed, and they were like the headlining things, and it was like from the genius, brilliant mind of, and it's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Well, you know what?
So
I mean, there's a lot of P.T. Barnums and self-created characters out there in this world, and you know what, guys like that, it's more power to you, pal. Just don't come onto my boat, and you know what I mean. Do your thing. Do your thing, and don't come over here. It's all good.
Yeah, but I mean, don't you feel like there's a lot of these, and I don't mean he's honestly a nice guy, right? Like I'm not trying to talk.
I don't know him all that well, but I just know that I remember he sent me a script for something he was doing, and I was like, no, I can't do that. It was, it was Meatloaf. It was like, I'll do anything for love, man, but I'm not doing that. Whatever that is. I
think he does like these like really insane right-wing things too. Like, I mean, I don't have any problem with that, but I mean, it's just, it seemed like
strange characters out there, man. Strange characters.
Yeah. So anyway, anyone who likes to take advantage though of people, like us, like actual creators, though, I just have a real problem with.
I'm totally with you there, and like I said, like we said before, what tends to happen is, we can do the job. I mean, that the job is going to get done well, and I think there creeps in some jealousy too. There, I think people just don't want to be around. They don't want you around. Because you're actually kind of good, and we don't need that. And I think that's out there a lot too, and I think that's held back a lot.
Yeah. Do you ever get this? Because I mean, you've done a lot of projects. And I wanted to talk about your vampire film also, but you've done a lot of projects. And do you ever get that kind of like negative jealousy thing from other filmmakers, or like they're like nice, but it's like a negative vibe?
I mean, you never. It's very LA. It's very passive aggressive. People people praise you right out front, but I think the like I said, the proof is in the pudding, which is, if they thought you were so fantastic, they'd be asking you to do things in their things all the time, and I've discovered that that's never happened. At least for me, nobody's calling me out, and it's like, gee, I don't know what that's about, and so I don't know what that's about. It's possible. I think there is some, like I said, because of the way, the price point of the technology, and because everybody's a filmmaker now, and everybody's a whatever. Everybody's got sort of their own little kingdom, so they're just going to exist in that where they're the king of that kingdom, and regardless of what the talent is on the outside, they might not want to get it involved in their space. So I think that's what I've run into more than anything.
That's interesting.
It's not so much negative. It's more like, he's going to overshadow this project, or he's going to do this or that. And I think that's my guess. I don't know. Who
have you loved to work? Like, who have you worked with that you feel really taps into your full potential? Like, where it's like, oh, well, there's no question. I mean, the guy we talked about before, my buddy Dan Brennan, I know that guy for, 30 years, and we started in dinner theater together. We did dinner theater together, and we he's one of those people. He's the only one, I think, I've ever had in my life that wrote things the way you wrote for Clohessy or Sadler or one of these guys. He wrote things for me where he'd say, this is how I see you. And he's also the only guy who ever saw me as the hero. I was always the tough guy, the hero, the Indiana Jones, I was the guy. And, and he always wrote things for me that way. So if anybody I ever worked with, it was always going to be Dan, who wrote, parts and characters for me that fit how he pictured me, and I tried to live up to it, but. Yeah, I mean, Video Guys it's such a great movie. I mean, it's really like, even now, I cannot believe that someone didn't try and remake that, or with you guys at a higher level.
You do a lot of these?
Weddings mostly.
Take a big breath. Oh yeah.
Bride's ex-boyfriend is out in front of the church with a baseball bat.
Is that it?
Is that it?
That's all I could see is a bat.
Yeah, well, the baseball bat needs a baseball bat. I'm not afraid of that.
Mommy! Mommy is sorting to a man.
You like kids?
No, I don't.
I'm also the only kid in my grade who drives a car.
Well, that's because I got my license suspended.
I don't know if you both have to be here. Which one of you is the cameraman?
That'd be me.
I mean, it was that good. The writing, the acting, the locations, the spirit of it.
Right.
Him and his kid, right? Like those scenes were great.
Right. You know what's funny about those two girls, his two girls, the one's an actor in Los Angeles now, a young actress out there, and the other one who was kind of the star kid, she's a writer. She's like,
wow.
She's writing in Hollywood. She's a screenwriter out there now. And
that's amazing.
so they're all grown up and doing all. But Dan's a brilliant writer. I mean, always was very funny, incredibly quick wit, incredibly funny guy, and the way we worked together was always interesting because Dan, the way his brain process was so fast, so much faster than mine, that like scenarios and stories and things would just fly out, and my job was always, what's the story? And I kind of have to pull all these things together and thread it and be like, this is, I think, what we're talking about. And he'd be like, but this is a great idea, but that's a great idea. So he had this incredible energy about him. And then that's how we worked together. I would always kind of hone it into a story, and he would have these incredible scenes and write his dialogue and all that stuff. It was great. And Video Guy specifically, I don't know if he's still doing it. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he was that's a perfect TV series.
Oh, totally. Totally. What a sitcom. What a great sitcom.
You could break that up into environments and things. So
brilliant.
I don't know if he's working with anybody on that, but he was talking about doing that as the way you're doing, like creating a pilot for a series for that.
Yeah. So whatever happened, I know he did that one. Mm-hmm. He did that like spy thing, he right? Like Mrs. something or
Maggie Marvel, which was like
Maggie Marvel,
mother and daughter kind of spy thing that he did. Yep.
Right. And then he did another movie that I never saw. Did it ever, come out? It was.
He started producing something else, and then we just did, little things here and there. We did a short film last year together. Finally, we hadn't done anything in a while, so we did that.
The Jesus one.
Jesus one, yeah.
I love that, man. I mean, like just seeing you guys together is so great.
We'll talk about what we talked about before, which was you just get tired of not doing something.
Yeah,
that was literally the two of us and our buddy Sean, and we just went, let's just go fucking shoot this,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and Dan wrote it in a heartbeat, and as he always does, and we just went out and did it because it was like, I'm tired of just not doing anything, and that was what we did last year, right before the pandemic hit. We finished shooting that. So.
Oh wow.
I haven't talked to him in a long time, but yeah, hopefully he's working on something because he's a brilliant writer.
Yep. Brilliant writer. Yeah. Sorry to go off, tangent, but we don't get a chance to chat. So,
nobody's ever asked me, but yeah, he's the only one who ever really cast me and wrote for me. Everybody else is sort of, I've gotten great things, but usually I end up having to mold them. Those Fred Carpenter movies, I kind of created those characters out of little bits of things,
right, and you work with Chloe on that one, right?
Night Never
Sleeps. On that.
Night Never Sleeps and Send No Flowers. I think I didn't work. I wasn't.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
I was in the one scene with him in Night Never Sleeps, and then Send No Flowers. We worked on it. We were in the movie, but I never saw him. He was in a different scene than me.
That was the Sean Young one.
Sean Young one, right?
Yeah, who I worked with also. What was your experience like? Because I had an unusually great experience with her. People. I was like, why did people say all these things? She was, she showed up. She was great. She was fun,
Yeah, no, Sean was great. I'll tell you the interesting thing. She was terrific with me. In fact, we became kind of buddies there. She had come to my house after that and barbecues and stuff. And so she became kind of a friend of mine. And we had a good time on that picture.
Between you and me, we both know who killed my father. And you will pay for it.
You got some balls, I'll give you that. Unlike your father, I'm not a patient man. I don't believe in threats, but I'm going to promise you that as soon as we're done with your beautiful baby sister, we're going to start on you. And I was actually cutting that picture too. I had the part in it.
Oh, no way.
I also produced and edited the picture. Mm-hmm. And as happens in a lot of these pictures, especially ones like that, some of the Fred pictures, is the plot and the stuff is kind of loose. So as I was cutting it, And I didn't know Sean Young. I had just done one scene with her, and I didn't know her from a hole in the wall other than the scene that I had done probably 2 weeks before. And I was cutting this thing, and I said, boy, to make this make sense, there's a scene that's never written here, and it needs this transition of her doing certain, and I called her up, and at the time she lived in Rye, up in Rye. And I said, listen, we just did the scene together. I'm cutting this thing. You remember? And, oh, yeah, I remember you, blah, blah. I said, what if I drove up there with my camera, just me and you, and I just need you to do a couple of things, look at a picture, do that, a couple of things that will help me. And she was like, come on over. She was, oh,
that's awesome.
She was fantastic. I mean, she was really, really lovely person. I had a great experience with Sean Young. I had no problem with her at all.
Yeah, I mean, she is a film icon.
What was the one you did?
So we did Man from the City. It was Clohessy and her. It was a short film. Actually, that was the one I did as soon as that other Madsen thing, went away. I just jumped in there. And she was so great. And we become friends, too. But she is a film icon, in Blade Runner and even in the new one. I mean, she's an amazing actress. I hope she works more.
I did one of these with her 5 years ago, one of these interviews like this. It was a great interview. Just I haven't put it back out for a while because some of the visuals aren't quite up to my standard. Maybe I'll just put it as a podcast. But it was a great interview, and No Way Out, just Gene.
largest. She was Ace Ventura.
She was A-list there for a long time.
That's
awesome. All right, so dude, what's are you consumed with what's going on right now with these two projects, or are you thinking about anything else? What's going on?
Yeah, it is hard now, honestly, because I feel like me and a lot of others are in a spot where, it's like, do you do an independent feature? That world is not great. The independent pilot is not great. So the only thing that's kind of going big time now is YouTube things. But that's not exactly the type of work I will want to do, nor do I really want to get involved in Hollywood. So, it's an interesting spot now. I think I'm just going to wait until I get inspired by something new.
I'll tell you what we should do, me and you. We should go out and just scout locations and see what... And you just turn to me and go, it'd be great. I could do something with that park tree right there where you're under a tree, and then you're done. Then you'd be writing.
But that is it. I try, and that's actually great advice, and maybe a way to wrap it up if you're sick of me. But you actors and directors and writers should spend time together in normal human settings, and you have to experience life. You have to be in traffic. You got to get mad. You need to be, and I think maybe being inside for so long with COVID, is hard for a lot of creators because the way you get inspired is by just living life, and that leads you to a story.
Right.
So
I'll tell you the one thing we don't want to do is if I see another Zoom play or Zoom movie, I can't.
Oh my goodness. I appreciate and I understand why people do it, but I would never do that in a bajillion years. It takes away all the superpowers, right? Everyone's superpowers, and they just in these weird boxes. And I haven't seen anyone do it where they use the technology to their advantage either. It's to their disadvantage. So
somebody was telling me there's one I missed. I got to go back where it was almost like a Paranormal Activity kind of vibe, but on
interesting.
Everybody in the Zoom box, things were going on behind him and shit. I was like, well, that's clever. Okay. At least that's
yeah.
Do it. But other than that, I want to get out and see real people again and actually talk and interact with real people. So let's make a promise. I'll go see you at some point. We'll actually have a human conversation.
I would love it. I felt like this was really honest and intimate, and so thanks, because these Zoom things are sometimes weird. So
I much prefer in person, but this works out fine. So last little thing before I let you go, where does everybody find all your stuff? Give me all the links one more time. I'll pop them all up.
Oh, great. So all my things are listed at my long Greek name, Elias Plagianos. I don't know if you could put that up, .com. Yeah, for info on Hudson Falls, go to hudsonfalls.tv. Distemper, I guess they never got around to making a website for it, but if you just search Distemper TV show, a million things, jump on it. And that one has a great cast also. It has Abigail Hawke from Blue Bloods. It has Tara Westwood from The Grudge, Chike Okonkwo from The Birth of a Nation, and he's on a new NBC show now. So, it's a great show, and we hope you join us at the Queens Drive-In because it'll be a lot of fun.
And that's on the 30th of April?
April 30th,
April 30th, awesome. Well, Elias, man, it has been a blast. I'm finally got to talk to you after 15 years of circling around each other. It's pretty cool.
So much fun, dude.
I love all the stuff you do, and I love the way you do it. That's my favorite part. Is how you
man.
do your work, and it's a constant inspiration. So thanks for doing this with me.
Thank you, brother. Cheers. I went through a whole one. So
awesome.